Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. If this is your first time here, welcome to our Coffee Quip series, where we discuss all things market research, but in a little bit of a lighter format. My name is Greg Pizzola. I'm on the marketing team here at Marketing Systems Group, and I'll be your moderator for today's chat. In this episode, we'll be continuing our discussion from episode 1 into our Advanced Cellular Frame, or ACF for short. If you missed episode 1 or want a high-level recap of the frame, you can check out that video of the series. So let's get into it. Let's introduce our guests here today on our panel. We have 2 members of our sales development team, Hillary McDonough and Bhai. And today's subject matter expert is our Senior Vice President of Sampling and Database Services, Dave Malarek. So let's just get right into it today, guys. I think last episode, Hillary, maybe you started us off. So Raj, the floor is yours. Kick off the conversation here.
Awesome. Thanks, Greg. Yeah, I think, Dave, a good question to start off might be, last time we kind of talked about the ACF frame and you know how it might be compiled and some ins and outs. But I think a question that some clients have been asking lately, you know, what are some of the main differences between traditional RDD cell sample versus our new Advanced Cellular Frame? You know, in the way that it's compiled and some of the advantages of using the frame over traditional RDD.
Be happy to answer that, Raj. Basically, the traditional RDD frame really has no bearing on being able to place numbers geographically outside of using rate center geography. With the ACF, because we have more known information about 45% of the numbers, we can actually place numbers within the correct geography. The traditional RDD frame, when you were doing an RDD sample of a county or a group of counties or a CBSA or whatever, the telephone numbers that define that frame were defined by using rate center geography. When you go to an ACF model, the ACF RDD, it's a combination of the two. We basically take the RDD frame and split it into 2 components, the listed or the matched, the phone numbers we have information about, in particular geography, and then everybody else. The listed component we can put precisely within whatever target geography you're doing. If it's a county, if it's a CBSA, whatever. The unlisted or the unmatched numbers get pulled in using the old traditional rate center methodology, but it's only the unlisted. All the listed and all the matched numbers are excluded.
So one question on that is the match numbers. Is this, I believe the frame is updated quarterly. So is the matching occurring at a quarterly basis or in a different interval?
Now this is a static frame, so it's updated each quarter. We rebuild the frame in totality from the beginning. So yes, so that information, that geography associated with the listed component is static for a quarter. Gotcha. But it's updated every quarter.
Okay.
So just a quick question about, you know, traditional cell RDD by rate center versus, you know, the matched listed records of the ACF. So it's really great for small geographies, especially if you want a very small, you know, say it's city limits, for example, and it's not easily defined by rate center. So what I understand rate center to be usually in the shape of a geography is usually a little bit bigger than a zip code, depending on the area. So you're way overstating a tiny geography if you're doing traditional cell RDD. So to kind of mitigate that, you could use, and I know we'll get into this a little bit later, but, you know, like kind of pull X amount of records from the listed frame by census block, for example, or even block group, and then to fill in the remainder, or, you know, the unlisted part, it would be defined by the traditional cell RDD rate center for the unlisted. Is that right?
That's correct. And I'm going to show you an example. I believe I have something I ran a couple days ago. If I can share my screen real quick here. So can you see the spreadsheet?
Yep.
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah,
so-
yeah.
So this is Multnomah County, Oregon. This is where the city of Portland is. So to answer your question, Hillary, there's really two things that come into play here. With the ACF frame, you can do a better job targeting an RDD sample, an Epsom sample within Multnomah County. Or if you want to take it one step further, you can take the listed and the unlisted and really create a split frame where you can sample the listeds independent of the unlisted or the unmatched. If you look at this table, the ACF RDD frame is about 1.5 million telephone numbers. About a third of them are listed, and we know for a fact that they are in Multnomah County. The balance of the records, the 993,000, are going to come from the rate centers that best fit Multnomah County. Now you have to keep in mind, rate center geography does not conform to any census geography that we're accustomed to. It doesn't conform to counties, doesn't conform to city boundaries. So it's really just based on where the telephone companies ran their wire lines. So you will have some over coverage and some under coverage because you could miss a spot within Multnomah County, or you can be flowing into adjacent counties outside the county. So this is a really, so the two lines highlighted in green here really make up the two components of an ACF RDD that best fit Multnomah County.
So I guess it's safe to say, I mean, this is the natural breakout, but depending on the client's objective, they can stratify, just use a disproportionate stratification to sample the listed versus unlisted at different rates as well.
Correct, and that's absolutely correct. And if you look at this, I mean, the huge advantage of ACF, probably the biggest advantage of ACF, is how it addresses migration. People who, have a cell phone got a cell phone in one part of the country and then moved to another part of the country and kept their cell phone, right? Their migration is a huge thing today, and when you're doing cellular telephone sampling. So ACF, if you look here, we are including about 142,000 listed telephone numbers, cellular telephone numbers that we know something about, that have people who have moved in from other parts of the country into Multnomah County, Oregon. Conversely, we have excluded from the traditional RDD frame everybody who's moved out of Multnomah County. So you're looking at over 700,000 listed telephone numbers that would typically be in a traditional RDD sample had you gone in and defined Multnomah County by rate center and just did a traditional cellular RDD sample. 733,000 of those listed numbers, which are going to be your more productive numbers, are really outside Multnomah County. Now, it doesn't mean they're all over the country. A lot of these numbers are probably in the surrounding adjacent counties, because Multnomah County is the city of Portland. A lot of people probably got their cell phones in Portland, but live in the suburbs and in adjacent counties. But this illustrates a pretty good example of the advantages of ACF and how it addresses both inward and outward migration.
Yeah, that's great. So let me just make sure I understand. So that 141,917, if you did it traditional cell RDD by rate center, those people would never have been included.
That is correct.
Okay, wow. So that's really gonna,
Right, it's about 27% of the numbers that we think are in Multnomah County that you have basically excluded from your sample frame before even trying to go into data collection. So again, ACF does a really good job in terms of trying to get the people who really want it, who really are in your target geography, into the sample frame.
Is that figure even higher for the inward and outward migrations for a smaller geography than a county, for example, like especially urban areas? You would definitely see way more inward outward migration at a lower level geography that's, has a lot of inward and outward naturally.
That's correct, because rate centers tend to be fairly large.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going into, I mean, a rate center can serve 4 or 5, a dozen different communities depending on where you are in the country. and you just want to sample one of those communities, if you're doing a traditional RDD, you're still covering that huge geography and all the telephone numbers that fall into that geography. Whereas with ACF, at least for the listed portion of it, you can go right into that particular singular town that you wanted to sample and exclude the other towns that are around it.
I know that we're going to be getting into this later, but you could also, the limitations with demographic targeting by rate center is also going to be greatly, mitigated with this new frame as well. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can do a split frame with geography. You can do a split frame with demographics. We can certainly talk about this in a subsequent episode, because it's just there's a lot of information there, and we'd be happy to do that at a later time.
Okay.
Yeah, why don't I hop in here? This is a great discussion, guys, but it does seem like this might be a nice spot to take a pause, since it sounds like we can fill an entire time slot with that next topic. So actually, why don't we just go ahead and do exactly that? If you want to hear more about this, go ahead and join us for episode 3. We'll be releasing that very shortly, and I'll see you all very soon. So thanks again to our team for the discussion today, and thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you in episode 3.